I kind of wanted to start, Mitch, with one of the more recent ones that came out today, as apparently, according to Sportsnet, Nick Kyprios, the team being the Toronto Maple Leafs, have interest in Scott Mayfield, who is in year 2 of a 7-year contract.
I feel like this is a long-standing interest, though. Is it not?
Yes, that has been a name that I feel like has been tossed around for them for a long time. Where do I sign on the dotted line?
Yeah, right away. I get the fit for Toronto, and I have for a while. Right, Scott Mayfield is a physical, sometimes even bone-crushing defenseman on the right side. Plays bottom pair minutes, does decently well in the penalty kill, and is having objectively an okay season by his standards, right? This plus 10 goal differential at 5-on-5, one of the 3 only players to have a double-digit plus minus at 5-on-5 goal differential. That is not plus minus, I should say. So, like, good season for him, but if we can get out of that now, let's go. Absolutely. No questions asked.
Because it's 32-year-old Scott Mayfield in year 2 of a 7-year contract. And he's been okay for the Islanders this year, and especially in comparison to where he was a year ago. Last year was really rough, but I think he's actually been okay for this year's version of the Islanders. And even earlier in his career, I thought early Barry Trotz era Scott Mayfield, in a relatively reduced role, playing 18 minutes a night or whatever, was fine. He was fine, especially at the cost that he was getting at that time. But now it's completely different. Now he's 32. The Islanders, as we've mentioned in pretty much every single episode this year, they desperately need some sort of retool, shuffling the cards, however you want to put it. Mm-hmm. And if anyone is interested in pretty much anyone except for like the 4 names or 5 names that we keep talking about, I think our answer is going to be yes. And especially one who is on a not so friendly contract.
Yeah, and that's really just the crux of it. It's, Scott Mayfield, in terms of the play, would I want to keep him? Yeah, I'm fine. Like, he's not terrible. He's really not. And you're right. A couple of years ago, it really wasn't well. And Scott Mayfield was, for a while, a good defender until he broke Nikita Kucherov's rib. And then the NHL's like, we can't have that cross-checking stuff around anymore. And took away his secret weapon. It's like shaving Nick Leddy's face. Just took away all of his power. And it hasn't really been the same player since, outside of this year. But how many more years of that do we have going forward when, as you said, there's still another 5 years after this on that contract? And sure, it's only $3.5 million, counting for 4% of the cap today, which is going to go down as we go forward. You're still committed to $3.5 million and a 16-team no-trade list in the final 3 years, a full no trade for the first 4 or the next 3, including this one. That's a lot for someone of his ilk that can be replaced. He's absolutely replaceable. If Toronto is interested, I'm down. Absolutely. I don't even know what the I don't think I even care what I'd get back for him. Give me a second and we're good here.
That was going to be my question to you, is what kind of return do you think he fetches? Because you have to do the math in your head now, right? Like, clearly Toronto wants him, so there is some value, but there's 5.5 years left on this contract, and it's $3.5 million, which isn't a ton. And as you pointed out, rightfully so, with the cap going up year over year, $3.5 million's not going to be a whole lot in a couple of years, but he's going to be 34, 35, 36 in a couple of years. So what kind of return? You're thinking maybe a 2nd round pick, something like that?
And you know what? I'm probably too high on my own supply on that. I'm just thinking, like, typically at the trade deadline, you're trading a defenseman, he's getting you a 2nd. Usually,
yeah.
But like that's usually someone on an expiring contract type of thing, right? Like Thomas Hickey when he was out of contract type of, or even when we got Andy Green, did we send a 2nd round pick to New Jersey for him?
Yes, and I'm almost positive it was the 2nd round pick the next year. So if they traded for him in 2020, it was a 2021 2nd, if memory serves correct. I don't know if you're pulling that up, but I
think that's right.
I don't know if they would get a 2nd round pick, at least maybe not in this year's draft. But if it's a similar thing, right? If it's a 2026 second round pick, or I would take just about anything that they'd be willing to give was my point. So I don't know if we really need to squabble over like what they would actually get in return.
Yeah, so Islanders for the Andy Green is they send we get Andy Green, and the Devils got David Quenneville and a 2021 second round pick. I think that David Quenneville throw in was just to make the number of contracts work.
Okay.
I think.
And Quenneville, to refresh everyone's memory, was like a career AHL guy.
Yeah, absolutely. There was not anything there in terms of the NHL potential. And the 2021 second round pick, which is exactly as you said, a pick in the following round. And you're right. I think for me, I was too high on my own supply there with Scott Mayfield. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the Bridgeport game on. Just only a couple of seconds. I want to see this end.
Okay.
They're losing 4-0, by the way. I'm too high on my own supply. I'm thinking you got a right-handed defenseman. That's valuable. It's a defenseman. That's valuable. Toronto wants him. There's value there. But second round pick is probably way too much for a guy on like 5 more years that we desperately want to get rid of. So, yeah, I think whatever you can give us outside of future considerations, I'm good.
Yeah, I think that exactly. Not a future considerations, but something. 2026 fourth round pick, like whatever it is, that really doesn't matter as much to me as it does of getting out of that and just creating another empty slot. That's what this is about. It's about creating assets, number one, but then also creating an empty slot and freeing up cap room in doing that. You want the big returns you're really looking for, I think at least, are the two names that we've talked about ad nauseum here in Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri. I think that's what's fetching you the most, more specifically Brock Nelson. But if you're able to clear off anyone else, that's I'm just considering that a bonus in my mind.
Yeah, exactly. It's an extra slot. I'm just trying to bring up all the free agents, if I can, that are right-handed defensemen to see what we've got even, cooking there. But I can't do that as easily because I'm not as comfortable, if you will, navigating Puckpedia. I think it's a good tool. It looks pretty good, but I'm just not too used to navigating it. So I'm having trouble getting all of that stuff. But I'll try to do that as we go. But I think ultimately we can find a right-handed defenseman there, like to fill that bottom pair void. Like there are going to be options here in terms of right-handed D that are probably a little bit older, like Kovacevic, although they're probably going to want to keep him there in New Jersey. Nicholas Perbix, I don't know, Tampa Bay Lightning guy right there. Just me just looking quick. Jan Ruda could probably fill that void too. Like there are options there to fill whatever we would move from Scott Mayfield, but it frees up $3.5 million until the sun explodes, and it gets us an extra slot. So you're absolutely right. Like if they're calling and they give us something that is even just in the ballpark of some sort of value, you do it.
This is why. Can I go back to a second for why I'm confused by this a little bit? I like it from the Islanders' perspective, and I get the link for Toronto. Like, take the contract out of it for a second. I understand, like, they are looking for a bottom pair physical right-handed shot defenseman. Scott Mayfield fits that bill. The part that I have the holdup on is the contract, and I think that plays a really big factor in this.
It really does. You're absolutely right, and it's not even just the contract in terms of the term, but the contract in terms of the no trade clause. He's got a full no trade, so he can say no to any team he wants. Does he want to go to Toronto? Probably he might, because like that's a pretty good team. They're not doing well at this second, but it's still a good team with cup aspirations. If he wants to win a cup, why not go there? And maybe he's still got good buddies with the bleep blop bloop is a fraud over there. Maybe. But he could just stay. Screw it. I like it here. I want to stay. And so you can't make me move. And Lou will not.
If you like that, make sure to subscribe to Up the Turnpike on Patreon for more exclusive New York Islanders content.